Hasan once again is trending back on Twitter, and no, he did not save a cat out of a tree. Unfortunately for Hasan, he wasn't careful with his words, so he attempted to compare a streamer's lifestyle to a person's 9-to-5 job. And as you can imagine, this ended up going as well as diving off a cliff and flapping your arms to fly. But just in case you guys haven't heard, I'm gonna go ahead and demonstrate to you guys a small clip of the stream.
Yes, a real job can be gruesome. A real job can make you very tired, but a real job doesn't suck the soul out of you. You know what I mean? In the same way that 9 hours of streaming absolutely will.
Now, obviously, if you want to be charitable to Hasan, you know that that's not really what Hasan meant. Hasan, what he was trying to amplify, or at least express, was that his social battery is completely drained at the end of every single stream. And that's fine. Some people are going to use analogies, such as this one, to make it as emotionally evocative as possible. And that's a rhetorical technique. When you provide analogies for whatever situation you're going through or whatever circumstance, it paints a more colorful picture. It makes it more relatable to the viewer. And I want you to do me a favor. Keep that in mind, okay? It makes it more relatable to the viewer. And the reason why I want to emphasize that is because what happens next, this is where I start to have problems with Hasan, because Hasan could have easily just said, you know what, my apologies, I should have never used that analogy. You're right, that was a terrible comparison. Instead of doing that, he doubles down, and when people point that out to him, talking about, listen, you don't need to draw up an analogy for us to relate to you, he ends up shaking his head in disappointment, almost as if he's giving the impression that he was placed on this earth with idiots.
Bro, you're generalizing too much about jobs you've never done. Do you know how socially draining it is to work like most jobs? I'm just saying we can relate to your feeling a lot more than you seem to think. Lots of jobs are socially draining. Many of us are feeling all too well. Oh my God, I'm gonna die.
All of that could have been retracted if he would have just said, you know, my apologies, I should have never used that comparison. That was a terrible comparison. It should have sounded something like this.
I'm an idiot, I'm a dumb bimbo, I don't know what I'm talking about.
But instead we got this.
I didn't even blast off yet, and we already have hella people in here fucking shoving words in my goddamn mouth. It's really annoying.
No one's putting words in your mouth, okay? What's going on is that people are attempting to understand what you meant by that. To be fair though, there are content creators out there and people online that are taking his words and creating a sequel to it. Like, believe me when I tell you, man, it just paints Hasan in such a terrible light. And I totally understand that. But the people in your audience, they are wondering, what is it that you meant by that? Like, why are you saying that? And if you take a look at the chat, you can see that some of them are just spamming question marks. And I would assume that they're typing these question marks in disbelief. And if there's anyone that should definitely critique Hasan, it's definitely his audience. His audience knows him way more than most people online. And if his own audience is typing question marks and they're asking the question, are you sure about that, Chief? Then I think it's a good indicator that Hasan probably fucked up. And I do want to go ahead and emphasize that there's a lot of people that believe that Hasan's audience are just zombies. And yeah, there is probably a good percentage, probably a 10%, 12% amount of people that are probably zombies that will listen to Hasan no matter what. But the majority of his audience, they're aware, man. And when they see that, they definitely want to criticize and question. And question they do, because there was a couple of chatters who were negotiating with Hasan and Hasan didn't budge.
I did sales, dumbass. I know what it's like. I had to fucking sit there. I know, it's awful. You have to literally, I'm telling you, yeah, it was draining my social battery nowhere near to the same degree as Twitch streaming. That's my point. I clean shitters, buddy. What about you? I have to deal with people who clean shitters that come in here and fucking want to duke it out every goddamn time my mouth opens.
Now, I don't know what it is about Hasan where he feels like he has to rebuttal every single criticism about him, especially criticism coming from his audience. If he would have just admitted that, yeah, that was a terrible analogy, he could have just moved on. Now, obviously, he wouldn't just move on unscathed, because that moment still would have gone viral, but at least he would have had the context to provide it, because drama channels like Willie Mac ended up grabbing that moment and posted it on Twitter. And of course, he ended up providing his own narrative behind it, which reads, this guy makes shitta for 9 hours a day and his commute to work is walking into his 5th bedroom in his $3 million mansion, but somehow a real job is hard. I don't know how big Hasan's mansion is. All I know is that when he wakes up early in the morning, he needs to take an Uber to get to his bathroom. Nah, imagine that shit would be crazy. Nonetheless though, it was a big controversy back in 2021. And there was articles written about how Hasan, being a socialist, ended up purchasing a mansion in LA, as well as a Porsche that was worth $200,000. Now that you have a little bit of context towards Hasan's mansion and expensive car, you can see that when you read Willie Max's tweet, it doesn't exactly paint Hasan in a good light. However, Hasan ends up responding to that tweet talking about, well, you didn't check out the context. You left out the context. The context is that I'm talking about my social battery and I am grateful for what I have. And when you check out the clip that he provided, it's this clip.
There's motherfuckers who are accountants in here and they're misunderstanding what I'm saying. A real job does not expend your social battery in the same way as someone who did a sales job, a real job, as someone who did both. 9 hours of constant performance and people pleasing taps you out from social scenarios.
Two things that I want to provide you guys with. The first thing is that this video is going to be in the link down below if you guys want to check out the entire video. It's about 2 minutes long, a lot of context. Highly suggest that you guys go and check it out. And the second thing is that you guys are going to notice that there's a couple of jumps, and that's because there's nothing but dead air. He doesn't say anything, so don't worry, you didn't miss out on anything. Even with the context that Hasan provided, it still doesn't really soften the blow, mainly because one, the soundbite is very viral quality, which means that it's gonna go viral no matter what, and two, he doesn't exactly retract the words. If he would have retracted that comparison, then perhaps it would have looked a little bit different for Hasan, but then again, this is the internet. I mean, a person with Tourette's could say the same thing accidentally and he'll probably still get canceled. I mean, what are you gonna do, right? So, I mean, it's the internet. But anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and leave it there. Okay, if you guys wanna go ahead and follow me on Instagram and Twitter, I'm gonna go ahead and link those down below. And yeah, man, I'm gonna go ahead and leave it here. That's all I have for you guys. Yeah, hopefully you guys learned something today.